गाइस ये एक सैम्पल प्रपोजल मैं आपको शो कर रहा हूँ, इसमें फर्दर कमेंट्स भी हैं, तो दिस माइट हेल्प यू अंडरस्टैंड कि आपका प्रपोजल का फाइनल जो आउटपुट होगा उसमें क्या क्या चीज़ें इंक्लूड होनी चाहिए. अब दिस इज़ अ हाई क्वालिटी वीडियो, तो आप चाहो तो इसको पॉज करके पढ़ भी सकते हो, इट्स नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम. बट सिंपली ये शो करें तो बेसिक चीज़ की है, बैकग्राउंड में आपने क्या लिखना है, इंट्रोडक्शन में क्या लिखना है, जो चैप्टर 1 है उसमें बेसिकली होना क्या क्या चीज़ें चाहिए. तो दिस कवर्स ऑल ऑफ दोज फैक्टर्स. ओके, ये एक सैम्पल लिखा हुआ है, इसने एक्चुअल जो बॉडी है इस तरह होना चाहिए, और इसमें एक्चुअली होता क्या है वो इसने ज़रा जनरल बातें यहाँ पे लिखी हुई. तो दिस शुड मेक इट अ बिट मोर क्लियरर कि क्या क्या चीज़ें एक्सपेक्टेड हैं. दिस इज़ योर प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट विच इज़ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. हमने डिस्कस किया हम लोग यहाँ पे क्या क्या करेंगे, किस तरह करेंगे. जो आपकी प्रॉब्लम है वो आइडेंटिफाई किस तरह करनी है, यू नो दैट वेरी वेल. हमने बहुत लंबे इस पर डिस्कशंस किए हैं. Simply from other recent papers, what are their recommendations, their limitations, their gaps, everything they have mentioned, you identify that. इन्होंने ये जनरल बात भी लिखी हुई है कि what the problem is, you can mention that. एक दफ़ा आपको इसको सिर्फ पढ़ना है to clarify things. Okay. Further नीचे आते हो, gives you an example of the problems and everything. A problem से you derive objective, जिस तरह मैंने आपको बताया था. अब ये आप चाहो एक दफ़ा पॉज करके देख लेना, जो प्रॉब्लम लिखी हुई है उसी में से ये डिराइव हुए हुए हैं. तो दिस शुड मेक होपफुली अ लिटिल मोर सेंस. ओके, इनको फर्दर कैटेगराइज किया हुआ है. अच्छा सॉरी, ये मैंने उल्टा बोल दिया. यहाँ पे रिसर्च क्वेश्चंस निकाले इन्होंने से, फर्दर डिराइव होकर ऑब्जेक्टिव्स बने हुए. ऑल ऑफ दिस वी हैव डिस्कस्ड. दिस इज समथिंग जो कि एक एक्चुअल प्रपोजल से निकाला गया है ना, वेरी बेसिक फॉर्म. आपको एक्जैक्टली ये चीज़ नहीं लिखनी है, बट दिस इज सिंपली टू क्लियरफाई सर्टन आइडियाज़. कुछ बच्चों को थोड़ी सी कन्फ्यूजन हो रही थी. ओके, तो आई गिवन दिस बिकॉज इसमें बहुत चीज़ें सिंपल थी, तो होपफुली दिस विल क्लियरफाई फ्यू इशूज़ यू हैड. जहाँ जहाँ आपको प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, सिंपली पॉज दिस वीडियो एंड यू कैन गो थ्रू दैट. अक्सर बच्चों को लिटरेचर का प्रॉब्लम हो रहा था, तो देखो दिस इज़ द बेसिक फॉर्म यू विल बी फॉलोइंग. होता क्या क्या है, एग्जाम्पल्स गिवन है इसके अंदर, लिखने का तरीका यही चीज़ मैं आपको बता चुका हूँ. बट द मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज दिस कॉमेंट. ओके, दिस कॉमेंट्स विल गिव यू अ लिटिल मोर अंडरस्टैंडिंग. मेथडोलॉजी हमने कवर नहीं किया. आई एम अज्यूमिंग आप लोगों ने ये लास्ट कोर्स में कवर की थी. बट वंस योर प्रपोजल्स आर डन, हम एक लास्ट सेशन करेंगे जिसमें आई विल क्लियरिफाई सर्टन एनालिसिस, हाउ योर मेथडोलॉजी influences them and how that is used to derive your hypothesis. Okay. अच्छा guys, हमारा भी सेशन भी होगा. I will try to discuss a number of things there. But the thing is कि कभी-कभी a lot of time is spent when we are discussing things. हम students की specific problems बात कर रहे होते हैं. We tend to miss out a number of more broader elements. So I will be sharing a part of a proposal, a basic proposal, what you have to do in the introduction, what you have to do or cover in the literature review, what are the things which need to be covered in your methodology and so on. The sample I'll be sharing with you will be very basic. It will simply be used to clarify a number of elements or a number of issues you might be having. I hope this will save some time in our classes and discussion, because this will be something to look at or review whenever you're free. This is something which will be consistently available for you. You can pause it, you can see it, you can review it whenever you want. But keep in mind, this is a very simple example of a proposal. The proposals and the discussions we have earlier were much more detailed, and you will try to cover all those details which we have previously discussed. Just to clarify a few things, the proposal need to include 3 chapters. Chapter 1 is introduction, chapter 2 is literature review, chapter 3 is methodology. There is no set criteria or there is no set instruction or headings which you need to follow, but I will be sharing certain headings which I would advise you to incorporate in your research. The wordings of those headings can differ depending on different research papers you review. The introduction would have a number of headings which may be included or may be omitted. Some headings might be changed, some headings may be omitted. That depends on the type of research you are doing. Normally the chapter 1 introduction would include a basic overview, a background, or a general history of a specific topic. All these 3 headings feel or sound similar, but they have certain differences. Depending on your topic, depending on the area of research, you might follow any one heading, you might follow 2, or you might follow 3. If the topic is relatively complicated or it's more complex, you might have to go for all 3 headings. So at this stage, I would say you might use any one heading: background, introduction, overview, history. Either one is fine. Then the most important thing would be your research problem. How you derive a research problem, we have already discussed in class. If you want, I can have a specific video for that, but I hope you don't have any issues. If you do, let me know, we can work on that. After that, you derive research questions from the research problem, then you derive research objectives from your research questions and your research problems. Further, you can even mention your expected limitations which you might face during this research. Normally you mention your hypothesis here. Some researchers mention hypothesis in your literature review, some research mentions them in your introduction. That's fine. Normally the term which we use in the proposal is a preposition. Okay? We are proposing that these elements might have an impact on these elements. They are not established or they are not significantly backed by literature. So the term hypothesis is usually skipped in the proposal level. We usually use the term prepositions. If we are proposing this relationship. So you can use a preposition heading here, you can use an expected limitation heading here. Normally these headings are fine, okay? In chapter 2, literature review, in chapter 1 you can add other headings if you want. If you've seen some different headings in different papers, feel free to use them, feel free to discuss them with me. As I said, there is no specific criteria here. Some universities might have a criteria. If they have given you that criteria, you have to follow them. But in our case, we are not following a rigid criteria here. Literature review is something you will be reviewing. We have discussed in detail. I'm just touching a few elements here. The literature review we are following is a thematic literature review. We are identifying different themes here. So in this case, you'll be reviewing a number of recent papers which we have discussed in detail. You will identify elements or themes which significantly contribute to your research problem. We won't talk about general things, okay? Everything we are doing in the literature has to back whatever you are doing in your research. The most important thing here is our research problem. So your research problem will be backed by your literature. You will look at papers, you will look at research publications and see what they're talking about the problem. What are the general elements about your problem? You will mention them, you will explain them, and you will try to move towards your research, specific research problem from general elements. If you're talking about coronavirus and how it's affecting students' performance, you might focus on, initially start with what coronavirus is, what problems it is having on society. If you don't get a lot of information on coronavirus, which might be difficult because it's a relatively old topic, there is a lot of information. You might link natural disasters or pandemics and the effect of those pandemics on society. You might even use that specific element and then move towards student performance. You will mention what student performance is, what are the measuring criteria for student performance and key factors there. Then you will try to merge them together, and then the problem will emerge. The problem you have mentioned, then you will work on that problem. This is a natural, holistic approach to literature review. Given the fact that we are only focusing on a basic proposal right now, you might not have a lot of word count to play with. So you have to be a bit more careful. So the literature you have should be as significant or as revealing as possible, okay? Again, you have problems, message me, we will further work on this. The methodology will be very specific, obviously depending on what you intend to do. Normally this topic covers headings like research type, research method, research design, time orientation, are you following time series, are you following cross-section studies, type of data, is it primary, is it secondary, analysis technique you're following, any preliminary analysis that you might be doing, your conceptual framework, the model you're focusing on, if you're using a quantitative research or research philosophy. These kind of things will be covered. Okay, we have not touched this element right now because we are in the initial phase. Hopefully in this session, the session we are having later on today, we will be discussing those elements. Okay, if you have any problem, message me, we'll work on that then. Thank you.